Well, hey folks, how's it going today? Hope everyone's doing really good. I got this little bad boy out today. This is an LAG guitar. This is a Tramontagne model T100ACE-BRS. Really cool guitar here, folks. Honestly, I haven't played this one a whole lot. I haven't played it for quite a while, so I just wanted to dig it out. It's got a nice double bound body. It's got wood binding, spruce top, nice sunburst, mahogany back and sides. It's got a mahogany neck. And it looks like an ebony fretboard, possibly, or a super dark rosewood. This one's electrified as well. It has a nice little preamp in it. It has like 5 different preamp settings, plus a built-in tuner, a volume, and a tone control. So that's on the first setting. Okay, let's go to number 2. Sounds a little muffled. Mind you, you do have a tone control to tweak this, so. Now that's really scooped out in that third position. Here's position 4. Not a big fan of that one either. And here's position 5. So it's really muffled. Again, you can clean that up. You know, some, but I think I like the first position best. Now, I'm going to turn the volume down. I did notice this. I got a string buzzing. That one too, so I think I got a high fret here, maybe, possibly. I'm going to take it down in the shop and check it out. It could be that it's got some back bow too. I haven't really looked at that yet, so let's give it a peek. Yeah, actually it does look like this looks nice and straight on the bass side. It has a little slight back bow on the treble side, so that could be it too. I just noticed it, so it's not a big deal. I'll take care of that. It needs a new set of strings too. But unplugged, it's got a nice sound. Now this is a pretty thin body too. Kind of reminds me of my Groon Versatile. I think the Groon is, it's probably about the same thickness, which makes this really comfortable to play as well. The neck on this guitar feels like a Fender, a Fender neck, maybe, like a Telly neck or something. It's really kind of thin. It's not super narrow this way, a little narrow at the nut, but not uncomfortable. It fits my hand really well. The playability's good, you can get way down on it, on the fretboard too. I really do like the sunburst. Whoever sprayed that knew what they were doing. That's really subtle, but really well done. Really pretty. It's got a wood rosette. I mean, they went all out on this. And if you could see in the intro of the video, the headstock has this kind of raised panel. Reminds me of like a Firebird, a Gibson Firebird, So I can't remember. I was trying to remember if I did a lesson on this Supertramp song. I know I played it one time in a video, and I think I was playing the Gretsch Resonator when I did it, but I can't remember if I did a lesson on it. So if you guys are interested, I think I will do a nice lesson on that, the whole chord structure. It's a really, really fun song to play, and it's really it's good practice for your right hand, and a nice chord progression as well. So I'm a big Supertramp fan. I have been since I was a kid, When I was a kid, I was born in the early 70s, so, man, everything that was on the radio was gold, or it wasn't. If it wasn't good, it wasn't on the radio. Uh, I'm really thankful to have grown up in that era of time where, I walked the planet with some of the greatest musicians that ever attempted to play an instrument. And unfortunately, a lot of those guys are gone now, which is really sad. But, they left us some really cool stuff. And I want to keep that alive if I can. Um, like I said, back then, before MTV, let's just say this. I remember when MTV come out, the first video on MTV was Video Killed the Radio Star. The first video on MTV, folks, man, it gives me the chills and goosebumps because it did really happen. That's when music, for a while in the 80s, you had hair bands, and those guys could play. They were good musicians, and whether you like that kind of music or not, you have to give them props for that. They could play. And, some of them were virtuoso, especially the guitarists and the hair bands. They were all like classically trained, some of them were, but, it all had that kind of vibe and well done. But in the 70s, man, there's just everything everything had to sound good or you weren't going to get a deal, And man, there was just so many great bands. The engineering on those records was, the best. They perfected it back then. They did. There was an art form to engineer and produce and mix and master records back then. I think there's still an art form to it, but it's, you're painting with different brushes now. You use a mouse, not a pick. Okay, so, I don't want to dive down that wormhole, but, for me, I'm still going to be probably stuck in that 60s, 70s, 80s era for the rest of my life. And even back further, because I do love the jazz stuff, Django and Wes and, Barney Kessel, Herb Ellis. I love all those old jazz guitar players. And it wasn't just jazz. These guys were just playing standards and they could tear it up, Man, it's kind of sad nowadays. And I know there's some great music still being made, and I'm happy about that. There's a lot of young people as well that have, they've seen the writing on the wall, and these young kids are all trying to be Jimi Hendrix and Jimmy Page, and I think that's awesome. But it does say something about the music that, that's out there. You know, these young kids are going back to the golden age of, music too, and engineering, and I think that's great. And that says something about the musicianship, the songwriting, the engineering. It still holds great weight today, even more so than a lot of new productions. Really, honestly, when I play and write my own music, I want it to sound old like that. Not in a bad way, but I want it to have a nice chord progression when I'm engineering or mixing my own music, or someone, depends on what somebody else may want. But on my own stuff, that's the mark that I shoot for, is that kind of engineering and sounds that were going on back then. And, it was analog tape they were recording to, which give it that nice subtle softening to the tracks and made everything smooth and nice. You can still do that with digital, but you have to get that sound before you hit record. Back then, engineers would mic stuff up, and the loss of information that went to tape softened things. It took some of the brash frequencies away. So they knew what to expect, and they got really good at that. When the digital age happened, a lot of engineers really did not want anything to do with digital. They hated it. I understand that, but I think it was because they had to change the complete recording process, as far as tracking goes, to kind of achieve that golden sound. So, I learned pretty fast that if you shoot for that mark before you hit record, you can still get that nice soft warm tone without tape. uh, it's obviously not tape, but I can get it pretty close, honestly. But you have to compensate for that brashiness and those unwanted frequencies in your amp setup, your guitar setup, or whatever it is that you're trying to achieve, and make sure that sound is the sound that you want on the record. Before, don't try to lay it down and then tweak it out and EQ it out on the board. Get it right the first time. And if you do, because that digital will capture exactly what you're going to put in front of it. So that's my opinion. So I've learned to kind of work with that and try to achieve that nice tone that I'm looking for prior to hitting the record button. So it just takes a little extra time. And, once you get used to it, keep notes of everything. It's the best way so you can replicate stuff. And, it can still be done. I don't edit stuff. I don't cut and paste and do any of that. I still track. I use a punch pedal. That's how I learned to do it, I started out with 8-track analog tape. That was my first introduction to recording. Patch bays, outboard gear. Then it went to ADAT and DAT, and then to digital workstation. So I've seen it, to that far. I'm not into Pro Tools or any of that stuff. Nothing against it. I know a lot of guys really like it, and engineers seem to use it too. See a lot of engineers doing both too. As far as editing, I get it. You don't have to cut tape and tape. That was a pain. So, it is. There are good qualities about it. I'm not downing any of it. It's just a different technology, and if you want your Rex to sound like today's stuff, you're in. If you want to sound like old records, then you have to put a little prep work into it. That's all. And it can be done. So anyway, I don't know why I went down that wormhole, but you guys know how it is. I like to get talking and yakking and blabbing and whatnot. So, like I said, I will do I'll have to look in my playlist. You guys can check those out too. Go on my channel, look at my playlist. I've got a bunch of guitar lessons, repair work, guitar demos, amp demos, pedals. I've even got drum stuff on there. So feel free to go in the playlist and check it out. I've tried to break everything out, and I try to, pigeonhole that stuff and compartmentalize it as I shoot videos. Every day or two, I'll, shoot those into the playlist, so everything's kind of organized. So I got to look back and see if I did a lesson on the Supertramp tune. I don't think I did. I think I just played it. I'll have to look, but if I didn't, I will work that out for you guys and do a lesson on it, because it's just a great song. It's a really cool progression, and I know a lot of you guys my age and older are probably Supertramp fans as well. It was hard not to be a Supertramp fan really back then. It was just, man, that stuff was really, really well done. Amazing band, great musicians, great songwriters. multi-talented instrumentalist as well. So, I've always been a huge fan of Supertramp, and I think it's time for me to go back to some of that stuff. And there's still stuff to be had, and stuff to be learned there. It's one thing just to learn a song, but it's another thing to stop after you've learned it and figure out why that progression was so cool and what made it sound so nice, and the little movements that they did. That's the stuff that I enjoy researching as far as music of my time, because there was so much of it you couldn't take it all in. It was every song on the radio back then was gold. It had to be, and if it wasn't, you didn't get it any airplay. They didn't care what you looked like; it's what you sounded like back then. Completely different than today. So, again, there's still some great music being made out there. It's just all different now. There's not really many radio stations. You don't. It's a whole different system, I guess, of how you make it in today's music world. It actually could be easier to make it. You don't need a record. You just need a song. You don't sell records anymore. You sell songs and downloads. It's just totally different. It's had to wrap my head around it sometimes, but I don't need to, and that's how I feel about it. It's not that I don't care, because I really do care about music and the future of it and everything. I do, but it doesn't. It's just the process is so different. It's not really that interesting to me, I guess, is the best way to put it. I'm still more interested in how they did it back in my time, okay? And I haven't learned all that. And, thank God to guys like Rick Beato who are interviewing these guys. And hats off to him, and he does a great job. It's not some news reporter that can't even play the radio interviewing these people. This guy is a ringer himself, a great producer, a great guitar player. He knows the questions to ask, and it seems like these guys are really comfortable around him. And man, I watch those interviews, every one of them. It's just, Rick's kind of wringing the knowledge out of these guys. And people like me and you folks, I know, do appreciate that, because that wasn't available back then. You didn't, there was no way to find out how they did the stuff, okay? So that's kind of where I'm at, and the wormhole I'm diving into is that kind of stuff. Now that it's being presented through modern platforms like YouTube, and guys like Rick Beato, and man, he's interviewed some really, really heavy hitters too. And I've learned a lot of stuff off that channel just watching those interviews and listening to these guys, and it's just really neat to have them. You can tell they enjoy describing how they did this stuff too, because it's just so different than what's going on today. Hopefully it's not a lost art form, and maybe someday it'll go back to that, method of recording, writing songs, and that kind of stuff. It has to change, though. Change is good. If they didn't change the recording process along the way, it would have never reached the peak and heights that it did in the 70s and 80s, even the late 60s. I mean, the engineers and producers of that time were brilliant. It was like playing that was their instrument to play, was the console. Just really cool stuff. Well, anyway, folks, I'm going to go back and check that out, see if I did a lesson on that Supertramp tune, and if I didn't, I'll shoot a video of that sometime and go through it. It's a really neat song. The progression's really cool. It has verses, it has choruses, it has a bridge. Now there you go. That's completely different than most modern day music right there. I mean, most music does not have a bridge. You might call some of it a chorus. You know, country, I think, is rubber stamping, that kind of thing. Verse, chorus, maybe a bridge. They're still kind of following that format, but they're using the same, you know, progression layout in most tunes, which you can hear that in a lot of modern day music. They're just rubber stamping the same chord progression, you know, maybe changing the key, and I guess that's why it's boring to me to listen to. You know, stuff like we were talking about earlier, you know, the older type of music, you know, you had to be different, it had to kind of sound different, and it had to be catchy and catch your ear and really stand out. And man, that must have been hard to make it back then. That's all I can imagine because there was so much good music coming out. It was like crazy. Uh, and you know, like I said, I'm just glad that I was born in the era I was born in. I got to see it happen. You know, walk the planet while some of the greatest musicians on the planet were walking the planet when I was. Sadly, a lot of these guys have passed on now, and we're losing more, you know, every day. So uh, I'm gonna still carry the torch and you know try to keep that stuff alive if I can. And I think you know most of you folks my age and older, even some of you younger guys, probably feel the same way. Uh, you know good music when you hear it, and that's just what it is. Well, thanks again, folks. I really do appreciate all the views. I know that was just kind of a yakking and blabbing session, but sometimes I have to shoot one of those too. And I will get a video up, and I'm gonna get this guitar straightened out. Like I said, it's got a little string buzz right here. It could be a high fret rate there, honestly, because the B's doing it too. So I'm gonna head to the shop and throw a new set of strings on this thing and fix the buzz. And other than that, this guitar is in really amazing condition, and it's really fun to play. Well, thanks again, folks, and we'll see you guys real soon. Be good. Okie doke.